I mean, I started off with like a husband and 2 kids. That was like my first like husband story lie. I would tell people that my husband's name was James.
You are a parasitic psychopath.
Dr. Phil has confronted thousands of guests over 2 decades, but some walked onto his stage with stories so outrageous, so carefully constructed, that even the seasoned host didn't see through them at first. From fake cancer diagnoses to elaborate catfishing schemes, here's what happened when guests actually got caught lying on Dr. Phil. Starting with Tanya Head, the woman who wasn't there.
I was flying through the air. That's what I was doing from the impact. I was smelling my own skin burning. And I started crawling over people who were burnt from head to toe, who were cut up, and I was trying to help them.
Before Tanya ever appeared on Dr. Phil's stage, she had already become a legend among 9/11 survivors. Her story was unforgettable. She claimed to have been on the 78th floor of the South Tower when the second plane hit. She said she was badly burned, her arm severely injured, and that a dying man gave her his wedding ring to return to his widow before he succumbed to his injuries. She spoke of losing her fiancé Dave in the North Tower that same day.
I was on the South Tower, and I lost my fiancé that day.
The survivors believed every word. Tanya became president of the World Trade Center Survivors Network in 2004, leading high-profile politicians including Mayor Michael Bloomberg and former Mayor Rudolph Giuliani on tours through Ground Zero. She spent countless hours comforting other survivors, helping them process their trauma. Many credited her with saving their lives. But before we keep going, I have a quick favor to ask. I'm trying to reach 20 subscribers by the end of this week, so if you enjoy this kind of content, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed and helped me out. Let's get back to it. When Dr. Phil brought Tanya and several survivors onto his show in the early 2000s to discuss their healing journey, he had no reason to doubt her story. The episode focused on how Tanya had helped other survivors cope with their pain. She was articulate, compassionate, and deeply knowledgeable about the events of that day. But everything changed in 2007 when the New York Times reached out to Tanya for a profile to accompany their 6th anniversary coverage. When reporters started fact-checking basic details, nothing added up. They contacted both Harvard and Stanford, schools she claimed to have attended. Both confirmed there were no records of a student by her name. Merrill Lynch, where she said she worked, had no record of her employment. Then came the devastating truth. Tanya's real name was Alicia Esteve Head, a Spanish woman who wasn't even in the United States on September 11, 2001. She was taking college courses in Barcelona at the time of the attacks and did not travel to America until 2003. Her supposed fiancé Dave was a real person who died in the towers, but his family had never heard of her. The likelihood of them ever meeting was impossible. The survivors who had trusted her were devastated. Linda and Jim, 2 survivors who considered Tanya their closest friend, felt utterly betrayed. They had poured out their hearts to someone who had fabricated the entire foundation of their relationship. After the exposure, Tanya disappeared from public life. Some members of the survivors group received an email in 2008 from a Spanish account claiming she had committed suicide. That too was a lie. She was spotted in New York City in September 2011, suspiciously close to the 10th anniversary commemoration. As of today, no one knows where Tanya Head is. Many worry she may be involved in yet another elaborate scam. Dr. Phil's interview with Tanya aired before her lies were exposed, making it one of the rare instances where a guest successfully fooled the show's background checks and escaped undetected, at least initially. If Tanya Head showed how far someone could take a single lie, Sarah DeLashmit from Highland, Illinois, proved that some people can't stop lying no matter how many times they're caught. When Sarah appeared on Dr. Phil in 2019, she openly admitted to having what she called a lying addiction.
I have a lying addiction. Around 25, 26 is when I told my first big lie, that I had cancer.
She confessed to faking terminal breast cancer, muscular dystrophy, pregnancies, and miscarriages. She even invented an entire husband and children.
Sarah told us she did have a husband, James, as well as a 15-month-old daughter named Mindy.
Growing up, you want to have that perfect life, so me? Sarah told Dr. Phil. All my friends were getting married, it made me feel left out. Sarah said her first big lie came in her mid-20s when she claimed to have terminal cancer. She joined online support groups, posted photos asking for prayers, bought wigs and a wheelchair to convince people she was dying. She attended a camp for adults with disabilities, pretending to have muscular dystrophy, and needing assistance to dress and bathe. On the show, Dr. Phil brought out 3 of Sarah's former friends, Liz, her husband Brian, and Bethany, who had served as Sarah's caregiver during the camp. It was the first time they saw her walking with her real hair. "I don't even believe a word you're saying," Liz said when Sarah apologized, claiming it was a compulsion she couldn't control. But here's where the story gets worse. Sarah hadn't just lied for attention, she had scammed people out of money and expensive gifts. While faking stage 4 breast cancer, she attended an event and received a $4,500 triathlon bike. Neighbors reported seeing FBI investigators come looking for it. Dr. Phil tried to get to the bottom of why Sarah lied so compulsively. Michelle, a real breast cancer survivor who had befriended Sarah, confronted her on the show. "You are a parasitic psychopath,"
You are a parasitic psychopath.
Michelle said, her voice shaking with anger. "You need to pay for what you have done. The law needs to come after you. You are worse than cancer."
You need to pay for what you have done. The law needs to come after you. You are worse than cancer.
Dr. Phil's assessment was blunt. He believed Sarah showed no real remorse and was simply playing another role, this time as the reformed liar seeking help. The show aired Sarah's confessions, but the legal consequences came later. In 2020, Sarah DeLashmutt was indicted on federal charges of mail fraud, wire fraud, and aggravated identity theft. According to charging documents, she had used her fake diagnoses to solicit donations and expensive gifts from multiple organizations and individuals over several years. Sarah's case showed that appearing on Dr. Phil and coming clean wasn't about taking responsibility. It was just another performance in her long history of deception.
Now the guy behind the catfishing scam is actually recreating the voice he says he used to enrapture Teo for months.
In January 2013, one of the biggest sports scandals in history exploded across headlines. Manti Teo, a star linebacker for Notre Dame, had dedicated his senior football season to his grandmother and his girlfriend, Lene Kekwa.
Manti Teo, the star linebacker for Notre Dame, enduring the death of both his grandmother and then his girlfriend, Lene Kekua, within just 6 hours.
Both of whom had died on the same day in September 2012. His story of playing through grief touched millions. Then Deadspin published an investigation revealing that Lene Kekua never existed. She was a complete fabrication created by Ronaya Tuiasosopo, an acquaintance of Teo's. Dr. Phil scored an exclusive interview with Tuiasosopo in January 2013, and what emerged was one of the most bizarre confession segments in the show's history. Tuiasosopo, 22 at the time, told Dr. Phil that he had created the fictional Lene Kekua online and had carried on a romantic relationship with Teo for over 2 years using a female voice.
You are the other person on the other side of this relationship that has identified yourself as Lene Kekua. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Here we have a young man that fell deeply romantically in love. Dr. Sandrihia, the daughter Dr. Phil told NBC's Today Show after the interview. I asked him straight up, "Was this a romantic relationship with you?" And he says, "Yes." I said, "Are you then therefore gay?" But then he said, "When you put it that way, yes." And then he caught himself and said, "I am confused." The most shocking part came when Dr. Phil challenged Tuiasosopo to prove he was actually the voice behind Lene Kekua. Teo had spent hours on the phone with Lene, and audio experts who reviewed the voicemails for ABC News concluded it was a woman talking.
He did the voice.
Hey babe, I'm just calling to say goodnight, and I love you.
Much of this relationship you had was on the phone, Dr. Phil said. Let me hear that voice. If that is you on those voicemails, then prove it.
If that is you on those voicemails, then prove it.
Initially, Tuiasosopo refused. I can't, even if I tried, he said. There's a whole lot that went into pushing me to do something like that. Even if I tried, it doesn't come off right.
I don't feel comfortable at all doing this, on TV.
Okay.
But eventually, Tuiasosopo agreed to recreate the voice behind a privacy screen in an audio booth. He read transcripts of actual voicemails that Lene had left for Teo, including tearful messages. Dr. Phil sent one of his producers to Tuiasosopo's home, where he used the producer's phone to call back to the show and do the voice from his natural environment.
So to eliminate any doubt, I sent my trusted and experienced producer to his home to get one last sample.
Hey, babe. I'm just calling to say goodnight. I love you. I know that you're probably doing homework or with the boys. I love you. Daddy.
Dr. Phil's 3 audio experts confirmed that Tuiasosopo was indeed capable of producing the voice. It was real. Ronaya Tuiasosopo had successfully impersonated a woman for over 2 years, fooling not just Tio, but everyone who heard Lene's voice. Tuiasosopo explained that he killed Lene because Teo had told her he didn't need her anymore and had been talking to other girls on Skype. The fake death happened to coincide with Teo's grandmother's actual death, creating the tragic narrative that captured national attention. "I poured so much into Lene," Tuiasosopo said, crying. "I was crying that morning, hurt emotionally." The hoax had devastating consequences for Teo. He was expected to be picked in the first round of the 2013 NFL Draft, which would have meant an average contract of $11.1 million. Instead, the controversy caused him to slip to the second round, where the average contract was $4.3 million. He spent the first 3 years of his NFL career suffering from severe anxiety. Tuiasosopo's parents appeared on the show and said they had no idea about the hoax until Ronaya confessed everything to them. His father was particularly shaken, recalling the specific times and locations where abuse that Ronaya referenced had occurred. Dr. Phil's interview gave Tuiasosopo a platform to tell his side, but it also exposed the elaborate nature of the deception and confirmed that yes, one person really could orchestrate such an extensive hoax.
Winner of Survivor China.
Not all lies on Dr. Phil are about fabricated identities. Sometimes the biggest deceptions happen behind the scenes and the lies come from all directions. In 2013, Todd Herzog, who had won CBS's Survivor China, appeared on Dr. Phil seeking help for his alcoholism. According to a 2017 investigation by Stat News and the Boston Globe, Herzog arrived at the studio sober after a 2-day detox at a hotel provided by the show. But when he got to his dressing room, Herzog says he found a bottle of vodka waiting for him. He drank it. Then someone handed him a Xanax to calm his nerves, he claimed. During the taping, Herzog had to be carried onto the set. He registered a blood alcohol content of .263, more than 3 times the legal limit in California. The episode that aired showed Dr. Phil confronting an extremely intoxicated Herzog, using him as an example of how bad alcoholism can get. What viewers didn't know was the backstory Herzog later revealed about what happened before he walked onto that stage. Martin Greenberg, director of professional affairs at the Dr. Phil show, called Herzog's claims absolutely, unequivocally untrue. The show's official statement said, "The show does not give drugs or alcohol to the guests, and any suggestions to the contrary is errant nonsense." When asked if the show had a responsibility to monitor guests with substance abuse problems, Greenberg initially said, "No, of course not, it's a television show." He later changed his stance multiple times, eventually claiming Herzog was medically supervised the entire time by personnel from a treatment center. However, the executive director of the treatment center that Herzog went to after Dr. Phil contested that claim, saying his staff did not supervise Herzog in Los Angeles and that doing so would violate their licenses. "I honestly regret ever having done it," said Steve Thomason, the treatment center director, referring to his participation with the show. Herzog wasn't the only guest who made these allegations. The STAT/Boston Globe investigation found that multiple guests claimed show producers had facilitated their access to drugs and alcohol. One mother said a producer took her daughter to Skid Row to buy heroin in 2016. Another guest said a producer told her to go to Skid Row for drugs in 2012. The lies in these cases were multi-layered, guests lying about their sobriety, and allegations that the show itself was lying about the level of care and supervision provided to vulnerable people with addiction issues. What connects these cases isn't just that guests lied to Dr. Phil, it's how long some of these lies went undetected and how the show itself became part of the story. Tanya Head built an entire identity on a lie and became a trusted figure in the survivor community before anyone questioned her story. Sarah DeLashmutt openly admitted to compulsive lying on national television, yet continued to deceive people even after her confession, ultimately facing federal charges. Ronaya Tuiasosopo created one of the most elaborate catfishing schemes in history and proved it was real by demonstrating the voice on Dr. Phil's own stage. And in Herzog's case, the question became whether the show prioritized dramatic television over the well-being of someone who came seeking help. Dr. Phil's show has featured treatment facilities in exchange for their purchase of a VR product launched by Phil McGraw and his son Jay, according to investigations. The program, called Dr. Phil's Path to Recovery, costs treatment centers between $3,500 and $7,000 per month. One sales representative allegedly told a potential customer that centers using the product would be a go-to resource for the show. The show denied any link between appearances and product purchases, stating that only 2 of the more than 20 centers using the product were featured on the show in 1 year. These aren't the only guests who have been caught lying on Dr. Phil, but they represent the most documented and consequential cases where deception was definitively proven. Tanya Head remains in hiding, her location unknown since 2011. Sarah DeLashmit faces federal charges and potential prison time. Ronaya Tuiasosopo, who now goes by Naya Tuiasosopo and identifies as a transgender woman, struggled to find employment after the scandal and eventually participated in a 2022 Netflix documentary about the hoax. Todd Herzog successfully completed treatment and has been vocal about his experience, both the alcoholism and his allegations about what happened backstage. What makes these cases particularly fascinating is how each guest's deception served a different psychological need. Tanya Head craved validation and acceptance from a community bound by shared trauma. Sarah DeLashmit wanted the attention and sympathy that comes with being perceived as a victim of terrible circumstances. Ronaya Tuiasosopo was exploring identity and seeking connection in ways that spiraled far beyond his control. What these cases teach us is that even trained psychologists and producers with extensive background checking capabilities can be fooled by a really good liar. Or sometimes the truth is more complicated than anyone wants to admit, especially when ratings, product sales, and public perception are on the line. The show ran for 21 seasons before ending in 2023, featuring thousands of guests. But these particular liars stand out not just for what they claimed, but for what happened when the truth finally caught up with them. Some faced legal consequences, others simply disappeared. But none of them found the help they claimed to be seeking when they first walked onto that stage, and that might be the most uncomfortable truth of all.